All right, we're back. Video number 1, 2, 3, 4, I think this is. You can see since the last video, I've cut the front and back profile out. Really, in all honesty, that took about 10 or 11 minutes. I think I started at 2:01 and I was done at 2:12 getting that done. I didn't take a lot off, but I took off enough so that we can see where the major features are, what Harley Refsol and others call the gross anatomy. I know where the head, the hat, the belly, the legs, the feet are going. Next thing we need to do, flip it over and do that to this. So knowing that we adjusted here because my drawing was a little bigger, if I went strictly by the drawing, that's where I'm at. But since we did this at the bottom and then shifted everything down, we can see how close I am. Sorry. We can see how fairly close I am to what I originally drew. Let's see how close we can get with this one, because essentially there's not much to remove on this one. And this is going to be an individual thing. How do you want the feet to come out? Are you wanting the feet to be widespread? You want them to be narrow? Do you want it to be a thicker neck? Not as thick a neck? Do you want to leave room in here for a bandana? What do you want your carving to look at? And this is the hardest one to be able to do, because I've got to be able to get in here and draw where this goes. But let me do one thing before we do that. And this is something you should do on a lot of your carvings. I like to do it on a carving when I do it. And it's basically do a center line. Now I can grab a ruler to measure this thing, and roughly this is about 2 inches. I don't know if you can see that plastic part, but roughly this carving is about 2 inches wide. So there's my 1 inch line. If I follow that 1 inch line all the way around, and I want it to be fairly accurate, but it doesn't have to be perfectly accurate. If I'm a 1/16 of an inch off, it's not a big deal. Mainly this is for symmetry purposes. Excuse me, and it's for allowing me to allowing me to drill in between the legs. And so what I'm going to do is eventually somewhere between the top of the feet and the bottom of the belly, although I probably only want to go down to about right here, I'm going to drill 1, 2, or 3 drill bit holes through here, and I've got the drill laying over here on the side. I'll do that here in a little bit. But now that I know where the symmetry line goes, I know the symmetry line of my drawing is somewhere right here. And if I can overlay those 2 lines, I can put those lines where they go. I'm going to be roughly about where I want to be. And if you can see, right there is where that line is for the top of the legs. You can see I don't need to take off much, and I probably won't take off much here. I'll take the wood off in here and leave that as the part that I'm going to do with the drill. And then I'm going to come up here and make some marks for the top of the shoulders and the hat. But then I got to remember that I've got to drop that down, because I have the hat a little bit taller. I've got to drop this down. And so in reality, now I've got my neck coming down here, make that darker line, and the shoulders coming out here. Shoulders coming up to here and out to there. And then I've got the middle of the hat, or the crown of the hat, roughly there. So let me get my marker out, because we're going to cut. Again, it's entirely up to you whether you want the feet apart or if you wanted a rounded area in there more like this. So if you can see this one, the toes almost come together. You can have him pigeon-toed if you want. Again, this is entirely up to you. I'm going to leave this space in here. I'm going to cut out that space. But I would angle it toward the bottom of the feet. I've got my center line right there. I got my center line right here. I got my center line right through the middle of the face, and I've got my center line to the top of the hat. Okay. I'm going to follow that all the way down the back so that I know where everything goes. Because if I drill one hole and it starts in right here, but it ends up over here, I got to know how to fix that. But anyway, I put in the rest of the lines. I decided I wasn't going to take anything off here for the legs, but I am going to take it off here for the hat. And I've hang on a second. I have generalized this bottom of the hat rounding in and the shoulders coming up, knowing that the shoulders are going to be down here, but that's going to round up into the head. And it's giving me an idea of where the head, the top of the crown of the hat's going to go. And if this is going to be a cowboy, then you know you're going to have a rounded front and back. But I've got a lot of room to play around with this thing and have some fun with it. And so it didn't take long to cut all this out. Again, I'm a fast carver, and I still have an ability to be able to take off a lot of wood at one time. But it really didn't take me that long to do that. It won't take you that long to do this either. So we bring that hat back around to here. We're going to leave that alone. Ignore that line. And so what we're going to do is we're going to drill the holes. And then we're going to look at drawing the lines on. Let's draw those lines first. Okay. So here's the hat. Roughly to give me what a look at the brim of the hat. So I can see that. I know this is going to come down here because that's going to be the crown of the hat. And instead of coming back here, it's actually going to do this. And so we're not going to take off that at all because we'll take that off when we come up with the corners. But right here, this is going to be the neck coming up to the hat. And actually, you can see I'm going to drop that down from where this was going to come up. I'm actually going to worry only about the face, because here's the brim of the hat. If I follow those lines down, that should also be the width of the face. So what I don't want is the face being wider than the crown of the hat, not brim, the crown of the hat, and I don't want it to be narrower than the crown of the hat. If you remember the old, I wasn't alive when they were showing it, but the old Laurel and Hardy, I think, I can't remember the name. One was Stan and one was Ollie, and I can't remember whether it was which one it was. But anyway, one of them, the chunkier one, had the hat that just sat on the top of his head. Looked cartoonish. That's what we don't want. We don't want this to be cartoonish. And so if this is going to be the width of the face, all of this from here all the way back to here is going to be gone. So only thing I need to remove is a little bit of wood here and a little bit of wood here, this and this. And so you can see I don't have much to take off. I don't have much wood to take off on this thing. And so there's really only an indentation here and here and here and here and here. And so when I go to cut, that's going to come out a little bit. We're going to widen this cut. When you do this on the bandsaw, if you cut in and then cut this here and then try to back your blade off, it has a tendency to get stuck. And so sometimes I like to make this area between the legs a little bit wider so that way I can back that bandsaw blade off without it getting stuck. But I know these things are coming off. This is the part I'm going to cut off of the hat. Again, I'm doing sort of a cowboy hat. I like doing a lot of cowboys. They're easy to do for me. I like them. We live in Idaho. We see a lot of cowboys here. I'll go somewhere with my wife and she'll nudge me and I'll look around and there'll be some fellow with an awesome mustache and she'll say, "You should do that one on your next cowboy." And sometimes they end up. I hope those fellows don't get mad at me if they ever see themselves in one of my carvings. But anyway, this is going to be the narrowness of the face, because that's going to be the thickness of the crown. The crown of the hat should go up. And the same way here, the eye socket right here in the forehead should not be stuck way out in front of the hat, nor should be stuck behind. There should be a line that goes somewhat like this right down into that face. And that means that head is in the right spot, because your head basically is somewhere around here. And so you ought to follow, when I said earlier in one of the earlier videos about symmetry, you ought to follow some sort of symmetry. Hair is back here, something like this. We've got an ear somewhere here. We've got some sideburns. And so it's easy once you've done a few of these things to know where things go. If not, you know, pick up a quick book on anatomy, because while we're talking about symmetry, let me sidebar a little bit. We talk a lot about symmetry in caricatures, and there's got to be some kind of symmetry. You've got to follow some kind of sense in what you're doing. But there are certain anatomy rules that you need to understand. For caricature, we talk about the face divided up into thirds. You got a third from the bottom of the chin to the bottom of the nose, a third from the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the eyebrow, and a third from the bottom of the eyebrow to the hairline. Now, obviously that doesn't happen if someone's bald, or they have a different hairline, receding hairline, or they have double chins. Those are just general rules of anatomy. Also got to remember, in a perfect, realistic face, the head is 5 eyes wide. In other words, measure the width of the eye, and you have one eye here, one eye here, one eye in the middle, 2 on the outside. So a total of 5. Understanding what the proportions are on a full figure. Some full figures will be 8 heads high, some will be 7 heads high. Caricatures, we don't really worry too much about that. We just carve and we make it look good. I've got cowboys that I drew. I did one just the other day where the head's bigger than it should be, but it looks fine because we're not so much worried about perfect symmetry. This isn't a realistic carving. We're worried about the caricature part of it. And if you don't understand that, there's several good books out there on caricatures to help you understand what caricature is. Caricature is simply the exaggeration of one or more features. It's not cartoonish, although that can work, and you can incorporate some cartoon features into that, some cartoon attitudes. Our job as caricatures is simply to just emphasize one feature over the other. This guy may be a fat-bellied cowboy and his belt buckle is embedded in his belly. Who knows? His hands are huge and they're stuck in the pockets, or they're small, whatever. He can have an oversized nose. He can have big flop-over ears. Whatever you decide to emphasize on your carving, that's what you should focus on. So that's what we're going to do here in the next video. I don't think you need to see me cut holes out here, but we'll start with the next video where we'll start cutting out on the parts and start to get not only the shape front and back, but the shape side to side. So we'll end there. I'll see you on the next video. Talk to you later.